Hello everyone, today is 20th of February. Now it's 9 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I'll share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. Although before I start, let me notice, if I may, that this small independent media project from Russia is completely subscriber funded, and if you like my work, if you like my videos, please consider to support this project. You can do it with donations through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or you can subscribe to my page on Patreon. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment, including crypto wallet address. That's being said, let's go through some news now. And of course, world media attention is focused now on a verbal row that is happening between US President Donald Trump and so-called President of Ukraine, Zelensky. And seems like situation is escalating by hour. And for example, Zelensky accused Trump of repeating Russian disinformation. US President Donald Trump's claims that Vladimir Zelensky's approval rating are dangerously low is Russian disinformation. Ukrainian leader has insisted, claiming that a majority of Ukrainians trust his leadership. During a White House press conference following a meeting between US and Russian officials in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, on Tuesday, Trump suggested that Zelensky's approval rating is about 4%. The Kiev International Institute of Sociology said on Wednesday, however, that in a survey that was conducted in January, 57% of Ukrainians expressed trust in Zelensky, an increase from 54% the previous month. Well, obviously, Kiev-based NGO are gonna come up with such a number. So I don't think they conducted any social study at all. And then, even if they did, by the way, one should always keep in mind that people in Kiev-controlled territory are afraid to say anything openly, right? Many people, majority, I will say. And therefore, I don't think any information that comes out from Kiev-controlled territory can be trusted, right? So therefore, I'm more in support of Trump's view on Zelensky's ratings, because after all, as I mentioned yesterday, even Ukrainian sources, for example, Anatoly Shary, one of the most popular Ukrainian journalist, public figure, in exile, he was forced by Kiev regime to flee the country, by the way, and he's somewhere in Europe. So he is claiming, by the way, that Zelensky's rating is like 14% or something, if I remember correctly. That was what he says there several months ago, and since then his rating definitely become lower, not higher, right? And after all, one should keep in mind that Trump is briefed on daily basis by State Department, Defense Ministry, and intelligence community. And if Trump is saying that Zelensky's approval rating is about 4%, I mean, maybe he did exaggerate unpopularity of Zelensky bit. He might do that, but definitely, Zelensky's rating is in very low, very low. But it's not about this. At this point, when Zelensky is now directly attacking Trump and tries to humiliate Trump, this is a obviously issue. First of all, for U.S. state institutions, for U.S. Intelligence community, because I don't think they're gonna tolerate their asset, which Zelensky is, to act this way and to publicly humiliate President of U.S. or United States itself. So they have issue on their hands and they have to act fast. Because obviously there is a rift now in the Western ruling class. It is becoming more and more clear. There is one group in the Western ruling class that prioritizes US, and that group actually, as far as I understand, supports Trump's administration, right? And there is another group also a powerful one, that in Western ruling class that prioritizes Europe and is in full support still of Zelensky and acts against Trump and his team. And therefore, if US will not move fast, Zelensky and other figures in Europe might dealt quite significant damage to US reputationally. They can start, they might attempt to humiliate US on literally daily basis, right? And that's what is happening, by the way. If you're monitoring European media outlets, some neoliberal outlets in US and the majority of MSM in Europe, you can clearly see that there is a huge assault now on US state institutions, on Trump personally. And this process of humiliation of US has already started. And Zelensky is sort of spearheading this assault, right? And being used by Western propaganda, European propaganda, for these purposes. And therefore, US intelligence community have to move faster if they can force Zelensky to leave their office and appoint elections in upcoming weeks, not months, but weeks. That's one way to go. But if Zelensky is really out of control now of its US masters, then I think some drastic measures will be necessary on part of US intelligence services to make sure that US is not US stands on geopolitical map is not damaged by these elements like Zelensky or some others in Europe, Macron, Stammer, and the rest of them, right? And I guess this understanding is there in US. They have to move. They know they have to move fast. And Trump, for example, not randomly called Zelensky dictator, and also called for elections to be held as soon as possible. Obviously, at this point, it seems like Zelensky is not listening to Washington. Probably he believes that his European backers can save him in a position of power and save his life, which is mistake on part of Zelensky. He was never too bright, isn't it? As Trump said, he's a mediocre actor, comedian, writer, never known to be a smart one, right? So therefore, he is making fatal mistake, and he might actually force U.S. intelligence service to lean towards some drastic measures. And as we all know, dear friends, when rabbit farm animal, when there is a rabbit animal in the farm, no matter how much one may like animals, this rabbit animal have to be put down for safety of others, right? And Zelensky at this point is definitely a rabbit farm animal, as former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev pointed out in his recent post. So therefore, more Zelensky will act crazy, more he will attack Trump, less and less room will be left for U.S. intelligence community before they will, for manners, and therefore they might actually authorize some drastic measures. So Zelensky is risking big times. But anyways, by the way, there is warnings also from U.S. Directly to Zelensky. And for example, Vice President J.D. Vance stated that bad-mouthing Trump will backfire on Zelensky, and it will, for sure. Attacking U.S. President Donald Trump will not do Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky any favors in the White House. Vice President J.D. Vance has warned. Vance made his comments after Zelensky suggested that Trump was living in a Russian disinformation space. In an interview published in the Daily Mail on Wednesday, Vance said that such a rhetoric was unacceptable. The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in the public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that there is an atrocious way to deal with this administration. We obviously love the Ukrainian people, but we obviously think that this war needs to come to rapid close, he added. That is the policy of the President of the United States. It is not based on Russian disinformation. So some warning shots from J.D. Vance towards Zelensky, and this is not all. A National Security Advisor of Trump, Mike Waltz, also commented on this verbal row between Zelensky and Trump, and he said that Trump will not tolerate these antiques from Zelensky, and he will not. Why should he? Isn't it? Yet again, Zelensky is a CIA asset, right? He might have some connections now, or he might start looking for protection from MI6, for example. We all know that the UK is actively involved in Ukrainian affairs, but main player in the collective West is US, obviously, and US Secret Services, and Zelensky, as an asset of CIA, acting like he's out of control, and I don't think Langley can tolerate this nonsense for long. So either Zelensky will shut his freaking mouth and never say nothing against the US or against Trump, or he's finished. That's it, man. And if you ask me like a couple of months ago, how will Zelensky end? I would say that one way or another there will be regime changer in Ukraine, and Zelensky probably will flee for Israel. And now, after Zelensky's attack on Trump, I think chances that he will be allowed to flee Ukraine alive is shrinking. Those chances are shrinking, and yet again, if Zelensky will not shut his mouth, and if Zelensky will become a spearhead, sort of, in hands of European elites to attack Trump, then, well, that's gonna be too bad for him, because, yet again, US intelligence not gonna tolerate that. So Zelensky may be neutralized in ways that, So let's see. Anyways, no one would care, by the way, if Zelensky is found drowned in his in his toilet today, for example. It might happen, right? U.S. intelligence can organize that Zelensky will drown in the toilet of his cabinet. No one would care, really. I mean, let's be honest. No one would care, and after a week, everybody will forget about it. That's it. And when it comes to U.S. reaction from U.S. on Zelensky's antiques, well, Musk, one of the closest allies of Trump, actually, also weighed in this confrontation now, and directly blamed Zelensky for death of U.S. journalist Gonzalo Lira. Many members of our community, of course, are familiar with Gonzalo Lira, his work. He was arrested by terrorist regime of Zelensky, tortured and killed. And Biden's administration did nothing to help Gonzalo to free him. Literally nothing. And Elon Musk did remember this, and he blamed Zelensky directly for killing U.S. journalists. So billionaire Elon Musk, a major ally of U.S. President Donald Trump, has blamed Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky for the death of American national who criticized his government. Chilean-American filmmaker and blogger Gonzalo Lira died in Ukrainian jail in January 2024 while awaiting trial for systematically justifying the Russian aggression. That was accusation of Kiev regime against him. Zelensky killed an American journalist, Musk wrote on his social media platform X on Wednesday. And then, quote also, Zelensky cannot claim to represent the will of the people of Ukraine unless he restores freedom of the press and stops canceling elections, he added. So, yes, this is also a big deal, by the way, when Trump, on one hand, Trump is calling Zelensky dictator. On the other hand, Vance and Waltz issuing warnings for Zelensky to keep his mouth shut, basically. And Elon Musk, by the way, is directly accusing Zelensky of murder of the journalist, U.S. citizen. So it is a big deal, and I think our time is ticking for Zelensky. And as I said, if a couple of months ago, I would say there is like 60-70% at least chances that Zelensky will make it alive out of Ukraine and probably flee for Israel. Now I think these chances are no higher than 20-30%, because yet again, U.S. Intelligence community, I don't think can tolerate, or the Washington, by the way, for that matter, can tolerate when their puppets are beginning to bite back and spearhead their attack on U.S. and U.S. political leadership. This is total nonsense, and I'm quite sure Langley is already working together with their Pentagon, State Department, White House on scenarios through which Zelensky will be neutralized. And he will be neutralized, by the way, 100%. Meanwhile, dear friends, obviously there are some other topics also that Russian media, Russian public is paying attention to. And for example, topic of recent talks between US and Russian delegations in Riyadh is still active and discussed in the public, in the media field. And Russian president also commented on that, and he characterized these recent talks between Russia-US delegations positively. He also highlighted that there is already first positive outcome from this meeting, which is that both countries will do whatever is necessary to make sure the diplomatic missions of Russia in US and US in Russia have all the possibilities to work properly and be useful diplomatic tool. Good. And Putin also stated that he is open for a meeting with Trump, although he also noted that of course some preparation has to be done before a meeting will take place, because obviously two presidents cannot matter just for a media op or photo op. They don't need any additional publicity, right? They are in headlines all day, every day anyways. So therefore, obviously, it is necessary to prepare this meeting and sides, delegations of two countries to reach at least some agreement, so the two presidents then can highlight these agreements that sides managed to reach. Obviously, administration of president is involved in all these works. Press spokesman of the president of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, was asked when such a meeting of two leaders might happen, and Peskov said that it is a possibility that meeting between Trump and Putin will take place before end of this month, before end of February, although such a meeting might take place later on also, yet again, because it depends how fast delegations of two countries, representatives of two countries, will move in negotiation process to achieve at least some preliminary agreements, so that two presidents during the meeting will finalize those agreements and will inform their world community about it. But well, it is good to know that sides are working, cooperating, and meeting between two presidents might even happen before end of this month. Dear friends, as you know, I read comments and I did so on a number of occasions when members of our community are expressing their frustration due to these talks between Russia and US. They're asking questions: how can Moscow trust US or any Western leadership when there is a history in place, when Western countries lie to Russia time after time after time after time, and so many agreements were ruled out. Agreements that West signed up for were then ruled out by very same West. And I can understand this skepticism is coming from. I myself is a big skeptic, isn't it, dear friends? And even though I characterize talks between Russia and the US positively, because for this world, by the way, it is extremely dangerous when two major nuclear superpowers are not talking, right? So it is always good when countries are in conversation, when there is some lines of communication, to make sure that confrontation will not reach some extreme levels, right? But yet again, this is just the beginning of the talks, and then it's not about trust. It's not about trust. Obviously, very same Peskov, by the way, just a couple of days ago, said that during the talks with the Western countries, obviously Moscow will keep in mind previous history when agreements with the Western countries were actually dismissed by very same West and were in many occasions used against Russia as the attempt to lie to Russia and gain some time for very same Kiev regime, for example, to arm it and prepare it for this proxy war. Obviously, I'm talking about Minsk I, Minsk II agreements right now, and Moscow definitely don't want Minsk III to happen, right? So therefore, obviously, Russian side will keep in mind previous history and experience, and therefore, obviously, work will be done to put in place some mechanisms that will ensure that whatever agreements are reached between sides will not be ruled out after some time. So yes, it's not about trust, but conversation is definitely needed, and hopefully they will be in a place. I mean, effective enough mechanisms to guarantee that agreements that sides will reach will work. But trust, by the way, I don't think trust is in the conversation, because obviously for decades to come, no Russian leader will be able to honestly trust their Western counterparts. It's just I don't think so, by the way. It will take decades and decades and decades, any level of trust to be built between their sides. But yet again, some mechanisms can be created and put in place that will ensure, at least somewhat, that agreements between the sides are working. And meanwhile, dear friends, we have this interesting report from RIA Novosti that 3 tankers were damaged as a result of explosions in the Mediterranean in last month alone, which has never happened since the Second World War, by the way. And even though in this information there is no precise information about investigation and what conclusions investigators are coming up with at this point, but I think these tankers, one way or another, were involved in transporting Russian oil or oil products. And I'm quite sure behind these explosions is Zelensky's terrorist regime and European secret services that are backing Zelensky now. Once, US is basically taking different stands. And I'm quite sure if honest, objective investigation is conducted, investigators will will highlight Ukrainian trace in this terrorist attacks, and it is extremely dangerous, isn't it? Because we are talking about huge vessels that are carrying tens of thousands of tons of oil or oil products, right? And well, Kiev regime is now definitely endangering not just Russia citizens, but world community, because destruction of these tankers can cause immense ecological disaster, isn't it? Can you imagine if all these three tankers sunk in the Mediterranean? Hundreds of thousands of tons of oil will spill, and the coastal line of entire Mediterranean will be contaminated. Nothing to be said about marine life itself, that will be devastated. That's what Kiev regime does, by the way, nowadays. And for long, since the beginning of its existence, really. It was always terrorist regime. But now it just becomes too obvious for everybody. And when it comes to Ukrainian terrorism, by the way, or terrorism of Kiev regime, we have this information from RIA Novosti that Russian president commented on recent attack of Kiev regime on the pumping station Kropotkinskaya of the CPC corporation, which is, by the way, in which US companies have a major share. And the Russian president said that this attack could not be done by Kiev regime alone, this terrorist attack. Let's go through this news. The armed forces of Ukraine were not able to attack the oil pumping station of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, CPC, in the Krasnodar territory on their own. They do not have a space orbital grouping of satellites to orchestrate such an attack, and obviously satellite intelligence is needed for flight path and targeting data. Attacks of this kind are impossible without space intelligence, and Ukraine receives high precision space intelligence data on objects of destruction and in relation to objects of destruction only from the Western allies. I can say with absolute certainty and with full justification that the Ukrainian armed forces are not able to do this on their own. They don't have their appropriate space satellite grouping, Putin told the reporters. And in other words, by the way, as far as I understand, Putin is saying that a number of, in this particular case, European states assisted the Kiev regime to conduct this terrorist attack on infrastructure that belongs to US energy giants, and transports Kazakhstani oil mainly. 80% of oil that was transported by CPC is Kazakhstani oil. It's not Russian oil. Russian oil is just like 8% or something. That was the data for entire 2024, by the way. So this attack was clearly attack on US energy interests, attack on US, and 40% of CPC belongs to Chevron, I believe, and ExxonMobil, US giant, energy giants. And I guess Kiev regime and first and foremost European backers of the Kiev regime, London and Paris, are sending sort of message to Washington with this attack, that they have some means to deal some damage to US if Washington continues its drift from Europe. That is happening right now. I don't think US can tolerate such a terrorist activity of London or Paris. So we should expect some retaliatory steps, by the way, and shortly. And it is also interesting nuance, by the way, that in Kazakhstan, French-made drone failed. I shared their photo of that drone on my Telegram yesterday and Twitter X page, and reports are that this French drone, could be used to support this terrorist attack on CPC pumping station for coordinating, the strike, right? So, well, it is just highly likely, let's say, that France and UK was involved in this terrorist attack. Kiev regime on its own definitely could not do such a operation, and I don't think US intelligence was involved in attack on US interests. Theoretically, it is also possible, who knows, but I don't know, man. I don't think in this particular case US intelligence was involved in this attack on US energo companies. RIA Novosti is also reporting that while talking about this CPC pipeline network that was attacked by Kiev regime and its NATO backers, Russian president stated that it will take quite a time now, quite long, before this infrastructure will be rebuilt, because it depended significantly on Western equipment, which is understandable, by the way. As I said, Chevron and ExxonMobil are main shareholders in this project, and obviously they use equipment that they are familiar with, right? And because of the sanctions on Russian energy sector included, now both companies, Chevron and ExxonMobil, gonna struggle to bring necessary equipment into Russia to do some repair work, so that this pipeline network will go back to its full capacity to transport oil, and so I guess both companies will suffer billions and billions of dollars in losses due to this situation. Although I don't know, they can use their influence in US and ask Trump's administration to lift sanctions, at least on certain direction, so that they will be able to bring in some equipment. I don't know. And if I'm honest, by the way, I don't even care, by the way, what Chevron and ExxonMobil gonna do, man. I don't care about them, right? But what I do care is that this infrastructure might belong to US companies, but majority of people that were working there are Russian citizens, right? And I want Russian citizens to maintain jobs. I don't want them to be fired because of this terrorist attack of Kiev regime and their Western backers on that US pipeline or something, right? So therefore, obviously, it will be good if Trump's administration will look at this matter and help ExxonMobil and Chevron to deal with their issue. It's their problem, by the way, right? And yet again, I don't think US can ignore this situation. Obviously, they cannot afford to stay back because that will embolden London and Paris so much so that they might start attacking US interests all around the world, by the way, as a means of blackmail to force US administration to do what they want. I don't think it will work. I don't think London or Paris are in a position to force US to do anything, really, but they might try. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that when it comes to terrorism of the Zelensky's regime, Russian Foreign Intelligence Service (SVR) shared with public information yesterday that, according to Russian intelligence, Kiev regime is planning to conduct terrorist attacks against Russian diplomatic missions in a number of European states, in the Baltics. First of all, although there is a high probability that the Kiev regime will try to conduct terrorist attacks on Russian diplomatic missions in Slovakia and Hungary also. And obviously, if Foreign Intelligence Service is sharing with public now this information, Russian diplomatic missions themselves already informed, and hopefully all the necessary measures will be taken to secure staff of Russian Russian embassies and and hopefully Kiev regime will fail to deal some damage, but anything is possible. I don't know. At this point, by the way, when we know Zelensky and his criminal associates are in hysteria mode, when we know that European backers of Zelensky are in hysterical mode, I mean, out of desperation, they can come up with any sort of provocation, not just terrorist attacks, but false flag operations, some other provocations to derail this drift of talks. First of all, talks between Russia and US, and then to stop this drift of US from Europe, because European states want US to be involved in this proxy war against Russia. They want US to pay for everything, basically. They want to continue, using and abusing US as they were doing for decades and decades, since the Second World War, by the way, right? And so they are capable of any provocations, including terrorist attacks on diplomatic missions, and obviously Russian side and also US side should be on high alert for sure. And when it comes to provocations from Europe, for example, they can deploy troops, right? European states can deploy troops into Ukraine without consulting with Moscow, which will put these European troops into harm's way, obviously, because Russia was very clear: no NATO troops can be deployed in this so-called Ukraine, or if they are, then Russia will see them as a legit target, as combatants. But maybe that's exactly what European states would love to see, that they are deploying their troops, putting them in harm's way. Then there are some skirmishes taking place, or some strikes, fire is open between the Russian and these NATO troops, and these European states, France, UK, or whatever, will start crying that, what, our troops been attacked, or we are under attack, and fifth article of NATO should be enforced now. I don't think it will work. Many NATO members will say, you know what, it was your decision, you put your troops in harm's way, so deal with it now. It's not our problem. Most likely US will say so. Number of other countries in NATO will say will have a similar position. But still, by the way, leadership of France, UK, Scandinavian countries, Baltic states may try something like that. And for example, look at this news. UK could deploy fighter jets over Ukraine, according to Times. The British government is debating the possibility of an air policing mission over Ukraine. The Times reported on Tuesday the potential deployment of Typhoon fighter jets from bases in Poland is viewed as an alternative to stationing a significant number of ground troops and would require Moscow's consent. The report said, obviously, any deployment of NATO troops will require Moscow's consent, but this is not the point. The point is that these countries, by the way, first of all, UK and France, some others, in Baltics, they might put their troops in harm's way intentionally to provoke direct fire between Russian and NATO troops, and then obviously they will try to further intensify this proxy war against Russia by justifying this with these incidents between Russia and the NATO troops, even if fifth article will not work, right? One should understand that European so-called elites are losing their minds, by the way. They were feeling that they are on top of the game, and barking, by the way, big time. These chihuahuas were barking big time behind the US back, while they knew, US is here, so we can do whatever, right? But now when US is moving away and focusing more on itself, well, these European Chihuahua states, by the way, and the elites there, or they are, they are hysterical because they are losing relevance. Because, come on, man, who cares about British leadership, really? Who cares about what Stammer has to say? Honestly, UK is a non-entity on geopolitical scale, right? Maybe it used to be a huge empire some time ago, but right now UK is an absolutely irrelevant country on geopolitical scale. Maybe in Europe it is relevant, maybe. I don't know, ask French people and German people, do they care about UK, or is UK that influential there? I don't know, I don't care, but on geopolitical scale, without US, UK is nothing. Germany, there is nothing to talk about, right? France tries to act as if it's a separate like superpower, but in reality, come on, man. Come on, when you have a president like Macron, everything is said by this alone, you know. When you have a clown as a president, that says it all about state in which country is, right? So France is also absolutely irrelevant, by the way. And there are smaller countries, you know, definitely have no say in anything. It was US, by the way. It was all US. And now, if this trend continues and US will focus on its own self more and more, then, well, Europe, I said many times before, isn't it, that give it 20, 30, 50 years and continental Europe will be somewhat forgotten and irrelevant part of the Eurasian continent, and that's what is going to happen. But current developments, this drift of US from Europe, will just fast track that significantly. That's what is happening, right? And the European elites, they want to continue acting as if they are on top of their food chain, like if they are the big bosses, while they are not. They are nobodies, no freaking bodies. I mean, Stammer, man. Stammer is saying that they're gonna do this and deploy troops here and there. And who are you, for God's sake, man? Go kill yourself, huh? Really, man. On this geopolitical map, you are nobody. You know, Kyiv regime, by the way, lost her in Kursk salient area alone over 62,000 troops, right? I have news here about this also. Over 62,000 troops were neutralized by Russian forces in the Kursk salient area. 371 tanks. Just look at these numbers, by the way. 371 tanks, 277 armored personnel infantry fighting vehicles, 228 armored personnel carriers, more than 1,900 armored carriers, more than 2,000 other type of vehicles, more than 450 artillery systems, 49 multi-launch rocket systems, and dozens and dozens and dozens of other equipment, right? You know what is interesting? That UK militaries don't even have this much equipment. Stammer is acting tough, or want to act tough. They will send troops, they will send planes, they will do this and that. But in reality, Russian armed forces just in the Kursk salient area decimated grouping of forces that is bigger and stronger than entire British ground forces. That's how it is, man. UK only has like 200 tanks in its arsenal, right? Maybe less operational tanks. So that's what is happening, by the way. That's what is happening, and well, because of this desperation on part of European elites, they are capable of anything, literally anything, and that's why I think Russia has to be on high alert, US has to be on high alert, and a number of European countries that are led by normal people, like Slovakia, like Hungary. As far as I understand right now, some normal people actually are in position of power in Austria. Sort of Austria lately is acting less hawkish towards Russia, although things might change, I don't know. There are some other European countries that are led by more or less adequate people, but UK definitely not among them, and France. That's for sure, right? So yes, one should be ready, by the way, that any day, London and Paris may make decision to send their troops into Ukraine without consulting not just Moscow, but even Washington, potentially. They might send their aircraft also to impose some no-fly zone. They might try to provoke direct war between Russia and NATO, and we should be extremely cautious and ready for such escalation. Also interesting news, dear friends, that Russian armed forces entered Sumy region and are conducting now operations there. First time since 2022, actually. And also Russian troops, yesterday, there was a report that Russian troops intercepted yet another MiG-29 of Kiev regime's Air Force. I know, dear friends, many of you have questions how many planes Kiev regime still has left, especially the Soviet era planes, MiG-29, Su-24, Su-27. I don't know, but just a few, I guess. Just a few left. And now Kiev regime probably has more F-16s than Soviet era planes in its arsenal. And recently, as you remember, there was reports that French Mirage 2000s, first batch of French Mirage 2000s, were also transferred to Kiev regime. Formally Kiev regime, in reality, obviously all these F-16s and Mirage planes, by the way, are operated by NATO. I have no doubts about that. TASS news agency is also reporting that EU, by the way, to ban sales of video game consoles to Russia within a new sanctions package. So the 16th package of EU sanctions against Russia will restrict sales of video game consoles, joysticks and flight simulations. An EU diplomat told Reuters. This is not a joke, by the way. This is real news. These so-called politicians in Europe, they think Russian militaries are relying on Xbox consoles and Sony PlayStations, by the way, and that kind of stuff. I mean, who are these people, man? Who are these people that are in charge of Brussels? I mean, in charge of EU? From which psychiatric clinic these psychos were pulled out and put in position of power? What the heck is wrong with Europe, by the way? How people in Europe can tolerate this nonsense? And you know what is funny? These companies, by the way, major game companies like Microsoft, Nintendo and Sony suspended sales of their goods to Russia in early March 2022. So these companies already are out of Russia. So what European so-called elites are sanctioning then? What is wrong with these people, man? I don't know. Game consoles, I mean, for God's sake, man, I don't know. You know, it's just too crazy. It's just too crazy, man. These consoles, I mean, there is China here, right? It's China here, by the way. I can order 1,000 consoles and each will cost me like, I don't know, $2, $3. Why would I use a console from PlayStation that costs, I don't know, hundreds of dollars, man? But anyways, it is impossible. It is impossible to understand what the heck is going on in the brains of these EU so-called politicians. They really need some medical assistance, by the way. Really. They need medical assistance, and it is sad that people in Europe, majority of communities in Europe, tolerate this nonsense so much and so long that Europe is doomed, by the way, now. I don't think this process can be reversed. Europe is doomed to become a irrelevant part of Eurasian continent in a couple of decades' time. That's what is going to happen. Irrelevant, poorly developed part of Eurasian continent. That's the destiny of Europe. Due to these crazy policies of European so-called elites, and due to inactivity of the public in Europe, majority. Of course, informed minority is trying to wake up the people, to tell them that countries in Europe are heading towards total disaster due to these psychopaths in the government. But this informed minority is just it does not have enough tools to influence public, to wake the people up, that are zombified by propaganda of the Western ruling class, right? Anyways, in 16th package, anti-Russian package, EU is also planning to ban 8 another Russian media outlets. They used to love talk about freedom of speech, isn't it? These European so-called politicians, and now they are banning left and right, by the way, media outlets, not just from Russia. There is talks on different levels, including on high levels in Europe, to ban Twitter, right? Because they don't like Elon Musk. And they don't like that people have opportunity to express their opinions on Twitter much freely than on other platforms, right? And the European elites hate that. And they might ban Twitter in relatively short time, by the way. It might happen. So obviously no surprises that they are banning Russian media outlets. Crazy though. And there will be, of course, some more sanctions in that 16th package. They're going to ban aluminium. The rumors are that they might completely ban LNG imports from Russia. Let them do so, by the way. Let them try. And some other sanctions. But at this point, by the way, as we all know, almost nobody here in Russia cares about these Western sanctions. It's like 40,000 plus of them already imposed. And what? Yes, there are some difficulties due to these sanctions, but we can deal with it. We already did, right? So no big deal. And I will end this update, by the way, on this news. Well, I hope you will find this update informative, interesting, useful. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary, and share video or information about my channel with your friends in real life or on internet. If you like my work, and if you want to support, or if you think I deserve to be in this field of news and political commentary, then all the links to support are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.